And today we are going to talk about qualitative data analysis. We've got two people who are going to present the recap, and we've got a quiz for the recap as well. I'll start the quiz shortly. Let me first download the presentations that Atazaz and Nirmal have sent me. Um, Atazaz has got research interviews. Atazaz, are you ready for your presentation?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, let me just open it. So many slides, Atazaz. I told you you have to finish in 5 minutes, right?
Ma'am, I will go shortly.
Oh, all
We'll finish in within 5 minutes.
right. Okay. Don't go too fast, all right? That's okay if you.
Okay, ma'am. So, Assalamualaikum everyone. Heads up Khalid, and today I am going to recap instead of presentation. So, a recap of research interviews. Next slide, please, ma'am. So, in my today's talk, I have three subtopics like introduction, strengths and weaknesses of using interviews, and three types of interviews. Next, please. So first of all, we need to know that what is an interview. So an interview is not an ordinary everyday conversation, as Dyer said that it's not an everyday conversation. Okay, it differs from everyday conversation. What makes it differ from everyday conversation? In second point, we can see that the interview is a constructed rather than naturally occurring situation. Okay, this is how it is different from everyday situation, because for interview we have to plan a schedule, we have to plan our questions, we have to design our questions and other things. So that's why and this renders it different from an everyday conversation. Okay, so the interview is a flexible tool for data collection, enabling multi-sensory channels and to be used as like verbal, non-verbal, spoken, and heard. So during an interview, we use multi-sensory channels like verbal, like non-verbal, as like body gestures, spoken, and heard. Okay, for what purpose we do interviews? So the purpose of interview is to collect data. Okay, when we don't have enough data for our research, so then we go for interview. Next slide, please. Okay, yes. When to use interviewing? Okay, when we need to do interview of someone. So when facts and numerical data are not enough to answer our research question, when we see or when we think that our numerical data or the fact or the information that we have gathered are not enough to answer our research question, then we go for interview. So to gather data is in surveys or experimental situations. Okay, number 3 point, when it is impossible directly to observe what we are interested in. Okay, when it's impossible for us to directly observe uh, in our research question or in our research, then we go for interview. For what purpose? For the views, opinions, perceptions, and feelings of others. And when we need more explanations, more detail, stories, accounts, and etc. So that's why we go for interview. Next slide, please. Okay, let's talk about the strength of interview. What is the plus point of doing interview? Okay, so they provide rich data as it is in depth. So when we are going for interview, we have a bundle of information. Okay, we have lots of data in our hand. So we can choose, we can select data from there. It is quite helpful for us interview because it provides us rich data. Interviews help to discover the unexpected data. Okay, the data that we haven't expect before interviewing, and some of the interview can answer us some statement that we haven't expected. So we can find unexpected data, unexpected information as well. So interviews are good for answering the why questions, the question which involves the word why. Okay, so it's good to answer these kind of questions through interviews. And as it is a detailed conversation, context becomes very clear. So context becomes very clear because interview is a detailed conversation. So our topic it becomes clear to us. Next is okay. Now let's talk about the weaknesses of interview. Okay, there is a question of data reliability. As the interview is present and through their language and expression, the interviewee can know their bias. Okay, there can be a bias because the interviewee and the interviewer they both are present. So the data that interviewer has collected, it can be challenged. Okay, because there can be bias in it. So generalizability is not possible in qualitative research as there are limited participants. Number three, it's time consuming. Number four, but compared to observation, maybe less time consuming. Okay, so interview it consumes time nearby at least 10 minutes per head. Okay, we can give because it's dependent upon our interview schedule. Uh, but as compared to questionnaire, it is more time consuming. But as compared to observation, it is less time consuming because for observation we have to sit for hours at one place to observe. But in interview, it is less time consuming than observation. So let's move. Okay. Now some types of interviewing questions. So usually we have three types of interviewing questions. Okay. One is open-ended question. Second one close-ended. So we know the difference between open-ended question and the close-ended questions. Open-ended questions where uh, the interviewee can reply in a statement. Okay, he or she can give us a statement. And close-ended where they have options to select on. And third one is probing questions. Probing questions, these type of questions ask for more detail on a particular matter. Okay, they are often follow-up questions like, could you tell me more about that, or please explain that what you mean. So these kind of questions are known as probing questions. Next, please. Okay, now three types of interviews. So we have three types of interviews that is a structured, unstructured, and semi-structured interviews. Next, please. Okay, a structured interview is planned one. The interviewer prepares all the question in advance and he follows the predetermined set without any changes. So in this type of interview that is a structured, also known as organized interview. Okay, so in these interviews, the interviewer have a plan, and he or she have in advance they prepared their questions and they didn't change their questions. So the interviewer experience is more effective to collect the most important and relevant information. The interviewer's experience is less likely to be biased as interviewer work from a script. Number four point is the interview responses are easier to compare. Interview often must respond using predefined categories, closed questions. So in this interview, we can use both closed questions somehow, sometimes, and open-ended questions as well. So usually this kind of interview, a structured interview, it is less used in literature, but it is used in market research, government surveys, and means where it's less time taking in my opinion because there are some questions and the interview have to reply it in yes no what you think means the usually close-ended questions are there. Next business. Okay, next we have unstructured interviews. Okay, it's also called non-directive interview and unorganized interview as well. So there we have the interview is without any set format and lack of a structure because it is unstructured. Okay, so change according to the flow of conversation. So we can change our way according to the flow of conversation. No specific set of predetermined questions have certain topics in mind that they wish to cover. So in this interview, we don't have a set of questions. Instead, we have set of topics in our mind that we need to cover. Okay, so it develops a personal sense of responsibility. Interview feel relaxed. Interview feel relaxed in a sense that questions are not closed-ended. These are open-ended. So they have to give the statements about their personal life or whatever the topics that are in the mind of interviewer. So interview feel relaxed. He can share not actual information, or he can share his actual information as well. So where he feels relaxed. Okay. So last type. Next, please. Okay. Semi-structured interviews. So in semi-structured interviews, it falls between the two types, that is a structured and unstructured. So in this interview, we can see that I have written some key characteristics of semi-structured interview. Okay, it is loose and flexible structure. So in this interview, we can have groups or individual participants as well. We schedule this kind of interview in advance. So gather information from key informants who can inform the topic, insight into the participant's perspective. So deep exploration of the participants' thoughts and experiences, often the sole data sources of a qualitative study. So this type of interview is seems to be more reliable and more used in literature. That's it.
All right. Thank you very much, Atisas. That was very good. I especially like the way that you have created your slides. They're very, very cheerful and happy.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right. Stop here. Let me open Nirmal's slides. Nirmal, are you there?
Yes, ma'am. Assalamu alaikum, ma'am.
Walaikum assalam. Let me just open your slides and I'll share them. That's great. All right, so Nirmal is going to talk about observations. Nirmal, you can
May I
start now.
start?
Yes, please.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Today I'm going to talk about the observation in the research methodology. First of all, we have to know the observation, then we will go to the key points and then the types of observation. What is observation in research? Observation, as the name implies, is a way that of collecting data through observing. It offers investigator the opportunity to gather the information from natural occurring situation. From this, the observer can have gathered all the information and able to know what is occurring and surrounding. They have a real clear picture of their observation. Direct knowledge, rather relying on second-hand account, get authentic data and on facts, provide reality check, focus on behaviors or qualities. Second-hand knowledge is about the interviews. Rather than interviews, by observing the situation or behaviors, we will have the authentic information. And our information, the authentic information, is based on the facts that we have observed. Observation data are sensitive to context and demonstrate the strong ecology validity. And if we say that it helps the researcher to understand the context of the program, to see things that unconsciously missed by the in the interview, to discover that the interview not really talk about or to access the personal knowledge. And by observing the situation, we have a research that is not based on prediction. Rather, we have a fresh knowledge about that. Ma'am, next please. Observation enables get the data on the physical setting, the human setting, the interactional setting, and the program setting. According to Morrison, observation opened the ways for the researcher get data on the following: the physical environment. The physical setting means the researcher can able to collect data from about the physical environment and the organization. The human setting is about the data is about the gender, class, and the human behavior and the characteristic of the human. The interactional setting is about the data is about the interaction, how they are interacting with each other, is the formal way or informal way or the plan talk or informal talk. The program setting is about that the data is about the teaching way, that how the organizer or the people are delivering their way, the curriculum, housing, and in which way it is delivered. Next, ma'am. If we see the value of observation, we have the point that the researcher is better able to understand and capture the context within with people and with which people interact. First-hand experience with the setting allows the researcher to open or to discover an inductive rather than the guessing what the context is like. The researcher may see the things that routinely escape awareness of the participant is using a different mood. It provides a chance to learn things that people may be unwilling to discuss in an interview. Next, ma'am. Okay, we have advantages and disadvantages in observation. Obviously, the advantages of observation data collection method includes that direct access to the research phenomena, high level of flexibility in terms of application, and generating a permanent record of phenomena to be referred to a later. And if we see the disadvantage, we have see that we have required a longer time and high level of observer bias and impact of observer on primary data in way that the presence of observer may influence the behavior of the sample group elements. Next one. There are two types of observation, participant observation and the structured observation. If you see by the name, the participant observation is about when we participate in something and do the research. And the structured observation is something that is well defined and the proper structure. Yes, ma'am, next. The participant observation has been a hallmark of both anthropological and sociological studies. The most natural and the most challenging of qualitative data collection method, participation observation is a qualitative research method in which the researcher not only observe the research participant, but also the actively engage in the activities of the researcher participant. The goal of participant observation is to gain a deep understanding and the familiarity with a certain group of individuals, their values, beliefs, and the way of life. Next. There are three main key points that I noticed in the participant observation is that the getting entry into the location you wish to study, the first one. And the second one is establishing rapport with the research participant under investigation. The third one, we have spent enough time with the research participants and the environment to get a sufficient amount of data of your study. Next one. There are four types of participant observation: complete participant, participant as observer, observer as participant, complete observer. The complete participant, if we say that the observer become a proper participant of the activity and then gather the information about his research. The participant as observer, in this the people knows that you are a participant and then you observe the things. Observer as a participant, you try to get involved in the participant side as a researcher, you become the side member and you will observe the things and then collect data about your research. The complete observer is about that you are not a participant but fully observe the thing. The people know that you are observing them, but you are not taking any action or not taking part in any activity. So you are completely observing the situation surrounding by you. Next, ma'am. The second type of observation we have the structured observation. A structured observation is a qualitative research and it is systematic observation. Gather data without direct involving with the participant, observer keenly and collect technique is structured in a well-defined and procedural manner. The structured observation uses a coding method for data collection. Next, ma'am. Kind of observation by structure. We have three kinds of observation by structure: a highly structured observation, a semi-structured observation, and unstructured observation. A highly structured observation is the information is there in which the observation is recorded. A standardization of condition and of observation provides systematic description. It is a text causal hypothesis. Researcher knows it in advance what he is doing and what he is looking for it for his research. It is clearly defined to provide reliable data on the question to be asked. If we see the semi-structured observation, semi-structured is between the structured and highly unstructured observation, and it is the less systematic. We have curriculum and agenda with ourselves. We know what we are going to research, but we will observe the things as not just in a systematically manner. We are not restricted to the schedule that we have. And unstructured observation is about that it is diametrically opposed to the structured observation. The researcher record all the relevant behavior without system, difficult to establish, reliability, it more ecological validity, time consuming, and descriptive in nature. So that's all about the observation and research methodology. Thank you.
Thank you, Nirmal. That's really nice, very comprehensive. All right, I wanted you all to I want you all to go through a quiz. I've got some questions that I want you to answer. So you've all got questions in front of you. You can answer them. One of the questions says multiple choice, so that means you can you can give more than one answer. If more than one answer is true, then you can choose it. Okay, so it's just 5 questions. Please answer them to show me that you have actually understood what we have done so far so that we can move on. All right, start answering the questions, please. There are around 54 of you in the class, so I hope to get as much replies. Can you guys see the questions in front of you? Yeah, all right, so start answering them. Nobody has started to answer them, so that's why I was wondering. All right, 25 people have answered it. Let's see how many more of you can quickly answer the questions. I'll let it be there for 2 more minutes. All right, I'm going to stop the polling now. So any of you who need to answer it, quickly press send so I get the results. Okay. All right, so most of you have said that semi-structured interviews are flexible, which is the correct answer. So that's good. Most 85% of the people who answered said that. So that's fine. Fixed interview schedule, we have that in structured interviews, like Yatazaz just told us. And no set questions is unstructured interviews. All right. So please try and remember those kinds. Research needs to be systematic. Yes, that's correct. And it's something that leads to new knowledge. That's also correct. So two answers were correct in this case. Data-based research doesn't always need to be data-based. Non-empirical research is not data-based, right? So data-based was wrong and the other two answers were correct. Participant observation is challenging because of the time it takes or because finding roles can be difficult. Both of these could be the challenges, but I was going for the answer finding roles can be difficult because you're a participant. So this challenge is specifically related to participant observation, right? A study about presentation of feminism in a doll's house is non-empirical. Those of you who have said qualitative, why do you think that's qualitative? Presentation of feminism in doll's house, that's a theory-based research, that's textual analysis. So that's non-empirical, right? Why do you think it's qualitative? Can you give me a reason in the chat while I explain the last question? Research questions are questions that guide a research study. Sometimes students have a confusion that research questions are those questions that are asked in an interview. They're not. That research question is the main question that you're asking yourself and you're answering it throughout your thesis. So research questions are the questions that guide a research study. Most of you were correct in that sense, but some of you seem to still have that confusion. So if you have any questions related to this, if you want to comment on your answers, you can do that in the chat. Otherwise, I'll just move on. Okay. Let's go ahead with the slides. So what we are going to do today is we are going to talk about qualitative data analysis. There are many different types of qualitative data. So you might be analyzing a written text. You might be looking at some documents. So if you're looking at a textbook, if you're looking at a policy document, that can also be your data. Interview transcripts can, of course, be your data. Your notes from an observation can be your data. Any images, any photographs that you take, that can be data. You can analyze photographs as well. You can analyze videos as well. And field notes of observations are also data. All right, so we've got a lot of different types of data. So what does a qualitative researcher do? The qualitative researcher works like a librarian, you know. So you have got a lot of data and you want to, we've got a question in the chat. Let's see. Usman says, readers' perception of theory-based approaches are tests to literary works, like whether they are pro or anti-feminist, pro or anti-Marxist. So the question is, how do these approaches issue new knowledge if we end up with nothing but a few accustomed answers? We come along. All right. Usman, please remember your question. I'll answer it at the end, okay? I don't want to break the flow of the conversation that we're having right now. I'll answer your question, but just at the end of the class, okay? All right. So the qualitative researcher works as a librarian. So what you have to do is basically you have to tag your data. You need to file your data, okay? So that you can find it again. As a qualitative researcher, you have a lot of data, right? So you have interview transcripts. That means you have hundreds of thousands of words. Now, how do you organize it? How do you arrange it in a way that you can easily find it again? So you need to file it. You need to organize it in a proper way so that it's easy for you to find it. So say, for example, you have interviews of 26 participants. Now, those 26 participants, you want to give them basic information in the file name, right? So I always have a lot of folders on my computer. If you hopefully not ever, but if you go through my computer, you would be able to see folders for everything. So I have a folder of teaching. Within that, I have a folder of research methods literature. Within that, I have a folder of 2021. So 2021, I'm going to be teaching these classes, and then week-wise, there are the slides. Within the slides also, there is a name. So if you see that online classes folder that I have on Google Drive, you will see that every file is marked accordingly. Every video file, every presentation file has a name, an identifiable name. That's exactly what you need to do with your data. You need to name it in a way that you can recognize that name later. Okay. Since there is a lot of ethical protocols that we need to follow, we cannot name them with the person's name. So that's not ethical. So if you've taken an interview from Rab Nawaz and you call it Rab Nawaz, that's not okay. All right. So you need to call it with like participant one male, something like that. All right. So you remember it, and you have a list somewhere which you can check, and you can see that this is what I named this person. Okay. This is not coding, this is just naming. So we are organizing our data. So we are just keeping names of files properly so that we remember them later. Okay. We've not reached coding yet. So interview transcripts, you can name them by date, you can name them by the interviewee. Observations, you can name them by data or time or date or time or location. So like a librarian, you need to understand a little bit about the documents to organize them logically, to arrange them logically, okay? So you need to be able to arrange your things. You need a finding system to locate the file you're looking for. So you should always have a specific folder where all your data is, and then specific names to all the files. Okay, does that make sense? A very simple point. It's not very complicated. It's just that when you store your data, store it with proper names, have a specific folder for it so that you don't lose it. And when you go back to it, just by looking at the name of the file, you know what that file contains. Okay. Do that for everything, not just your data. All right. Everything needs to be named and organized properly on your computer. Sometimes when I get assignments from students, they are called Ma'am Ghazal. How can I understand whose assignment is that? If I download all the files called Ma'am Ghazal, I have 100 files called the same name on my computer. So try to name your files accordingly. Or sometimes they are called research methodology assignment. Everybody calls their assignment that. Call your assignment by your own name. So Resham RM 2021. That's a good name. I will remember who has sent me that. All right. So things like that should be kept in mind when you're organizing your files. Right. So now data analysis. Imagine having 20 10-page transcripts as your data. What to do with them? So you need an organization system. You need a system where you can arrange those 20 10-page transcripts, right? So if you have 20 10-page transcripts, that means you have 200 pages of data. What to do with all of them? You would be looking for certain themes in them. You would try and organize them. So how exactly do you need to do that? You need to do one or more of the following, according to Cohen. You could either describe it, or you could portray it, summarize, interpret, or you could discover patterns. Okay. So we need to find a way to bring together all the data and to be able to write about it, right? Like I asked you all to interview, and most of you, many of you sent me your transcripts, and you did the interviews, and now we have a lot of data, right? So if we put all that data together, we would have around 50 interviews. We need to find a system to be able to look at all of them together and to report on that, right? So our question was, why are literature students choosing literature? Somebody's mic is on, please turn it off. So we need to think about how to bring it together. So either we would summarize it or we would find patterns in it. Okay, we would say like all the students, all the boys are answering in a different way, and all the girls are answering it in a different way. That's a pattern. Okay, or all the people from college, all the people from master's background, all the people who are from MA side, they are answering differently, and all the people who are from BS side are answering differently. That's a pattern. So in order to get there, in order to be able to accomplish that, we need to find a way to organize our data, to analyze our data. How exactly do we do it? Very important to know your data. Okay, read your data again and again, transcribe it yourself so that you are familiar with it. Okay, that's very important. First thing is you should read all your data again and again. Memos are like notes to yourself, right? So you put a memo on it, you remind yourself while reading, leave yourself some notes. Somebody, I think it was Fazila, who sent me her transcript, and she had put some notes in brackets, like what she was thinking at that point. And that was really useful. So you could also do that while you're reading your transcript. You could put notes to yourself. If you're doing it in Microsoft Word, you can put it in comments. You can do the same on Google Drive. If you're doing it on paper, you can write it down. And this way you will remember those things when you try and analyze it. Okay. If you interview 3 to 4 people, you will have different transcripts for all of them, and you would save them with different names so you remember them. Okay. And then in your analysis, you will merge them. How you will do that? We will do it through coding. What is coding? Coding is like naming the data. Okay. You start to give topics to your whole data so you can organize it better. So if you have an interview transcript and people are talking about family issues, you underline it and you name it family issues. Code it like that. If they're talking about educational background, you underline it, you call it educational background. All right. So whatever conversation is going on, whatever is the topic of your data, you give it that topic. That's called coding. Okay. Um, sorry. What happens when you code? You code one transcript, then you code the other, and then you look at those codes together. So if you have this code of family background, how many people have talked about family background? Under that code, you write all the quotations of all your participants, and that helps you see your data in a more organized manner. Okay, we are going to do that practically, and that would make more sense once we go ahead. Okay. Another thing that you could do is you could make concept maps or flow charts. Sometimes it helps to make concept maps. So um, if you brainstorm about your data and you make a map, so people from rural side were talking about educational background included parents education, number of siblings, how many schools they shifted because of their father's job. All of those things come under education, a family background. So you could make a concept map or a flow chart so that things are clearer in your own mind. Okay. Memos are like this, notes to yourself as you go along. Any kind of comment on your data, you could leave that, and that can prove useful later. It's often linked to your codes, but that's not necessary. Coding, as I said, it's about naming your data. So think of it like a book index. It helps you to find things. Okay. You want to categorize similar things across interviews. You want to code things because you want to see how many people have talked about the same thing so that you can identify patterns in your data, so that you can make a certain argument based on your data, right? So you code because you want to see how many people have talked about the same thing. So if you have the same code in 10 transcripts, that will help you understand that 10 people have talked about this issue. Okay. And what have they said? Then you can look at those codes. Helps you categorize similar things across interviews. It helps to draw out common themes across interviews. Example, how teachers discuss dealing with bad behavior. So if you're interviewing teachers and you've got bad behavior in 10 of them, then you can look at those quotations of bad behavior code and you will understand that how teachers are discussing bad behavior. Does that make sense? Habiba says it's clear. How about the others? Shanawaz, Saqib, Misbah? Okay, Aisha, that's fine. What is the common internet code in order? I don't understand your question, Usman. Could you turn on your mic and speak? Yes, Shanawaz, I'll repeat, no problem.
Ma'am?
Yes.
Ma'am, you said that the data we have, we should organize that data in the form of coding, and we should, name them with the topics. But my question is that how do we order them? Like, for example, if we are writing an essay, that's of course not a research, but just for the sake of example, we order the topics based on the importance of the topics. Like, for example, if there's a cause, then if that is the important cause, then we would uh, place it on the top of the outline. So similarly, what is the factors or the component that guide us to arrange these topics in research?
Okay, so coding you understand. Now you want to know how to organize those codes, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, we'll get to that. We'll get to that step. It's basically just to give you a brief idea. When you're done with your coding, now you put it into categories. So if you are talking about rural urban background, if you're talking about education, family, you can put all of that under personal background. Okay, and those categories will help you identify patterns. All right. So it's not about what is more important and which needs to be coded or not. Everything needs to be coded. Everything that is connected to your research question, if you have collected the data properly, then everything is important. Okay, and we will organize all of that once into coding, that into then into categories, and then into themes that we will write about. These steps I'll explain in more detail. To answer Shanawaz's question, Shanawaz, coding is like naming the data, right? So we are trying to organize. We are trying to organize our data. So we have got a lot of qualitative data. We've got a lot of words, right? Qualitative data means rich data. That has a lot of words. So if we have a lot of words, if we have very long data, very long documents of data, then how do we organize it? We start naming it. So so that we know what the participant is talking about in a specific passage. Sorry. So if we read our interview transcript and we see that the participant is talking about social rights of women in Doll's House, then we underline it as social rights. Then we go on and we see that they're talking about economic rights, then we underline it and we call it economic rights. This heading, this name that we are giving to our data is called coding. Okay. So code is the name that we give, the topic that we give to our data. You go through your whole interview transcript and you keep coding it. And you do that with all the transcripts that you have, all the data that you have. That's the first step of data analysis. Okay. Does that make sense, Yanavans? Okay. How many codes? Now, the next question is, how many codes do you need to have? As many as you need. Okay. If you want to name all your data and you see different topics coming up, you keep naming them. Then you use that list that you have from your first transcript to code your second one. And if more topics come up, then you give them more names, more codes. Okay. Then you do the same with the third transcript and so on. When should you finish? Because we keep revising our codes, and once you think that you have done enough work on this, you have spent enough time on your coding, and now your whole data has been named and you can see similar codes in different transcripts, then you should move on to the next stage. Okay. So it's a judgment call. In qualitative research, it's all about your personal judgment. So you are supposed to be very diligent and very meticulous. Like you have to be very sharp in what you're doing. You have to keep going again and again to ensure that you're doing it properly. Okay. But then you have to stop at some point as well. We cannot go on coding forever. We have to move on to the next stage. So you have to stop at some point when you feel that you have enough codes and you can now write your report. So here's an example. I'll stop the video so you can see the whole thing. So this is on the left side, it's the interview transcript. On the right side is the code. All right. Please go through it, see if you understand why I have coded it the way I have. Do you follow what's going on here? Do you see what why it has been coded? Sophia, your mic is turned on. Sophia, you're not paying attention to the class. Who are you talking to? All right, so let's take a look at the transcript. Let me move this. Okay. So the interviewer asks, what kind of teaching methods do you use while teaching a large class? Okay. And then the respondent Yes, the respondent talks about a lot of different teaching strategies. She says that I try to incorporate all kind of teaching strategies that I would usually apply in any class. I try to use group activities. I try to do lectures. I don't rely on lectures much because I feel like in a very large class with so many students, a theme literature is not appropriate just to teach them by lectures. So I try to do which is just helpful. Like I divide them in groups and assign them with roles. I try to make them do silent reading on their own. I make them work in pairs, all kinds of activities. So I have coded it as mixed strategies, including group discussion, lectures, sometimes roles, pair work, individual reading tasks. Then in the second part, the interviewer says, do you think there are any positive sides of having a large class? And the respondent says, yeah, there can be. Like, so there are so many students, everybody's answers are different. With so many students, we have a lot of opinions and see a single concept from many perspectives. So I've coded it as variety of ideas in large classes. Now see, if a lot of participants talk about teaching strategies, then I can see that they are talking about teaching strategies in this manner. So I put all the codes in one page, and I am able to see that what they have talked about in relation to this topic. So it helps me organize my data. The coding helps me organize my data. How could you make a concept map? You can make a concept map like this. So there's a key concept, you find a link with a general concept, you give an example or less general concept, and so on. So it's like a graphic representation. Sometimes some people work with visual aids much better than with words. So if you are one of those people, then you can use a concept map. It can help you start thinking about links in your data. Now, we will talk about thematic analysis. Let me see. Okay, yeah. Now, there are various kind of qualitative data analysis, right? One of them is thematic analysis, the one that's most commonly used and the one that we are going to discuss in detail. Thematic analysis is a model used by Braun and Clark. These two ladies, what they have done is they have given us 6 steps of analysis. The first step is familiarizing yourself with your data. So you read your data, you read your transcripts, you read your documents. Again and again, you transcribe your interviews and you become very familiar with your data. You know everything that your data contains. Then the next thing that you do is you generate initial codes, like we did in the last slide. You start writing codes for all your data. After you've written codes for all your data, you organize your data according to codes. So firstly, your data is organized according to transcripts. You've got 10 transcripts and you've coded them. Now you organize it according to codes. So you have a code on teaching strategies. What are the things that come under teaching strategies? You organize them like that. You form categories. How do you form categories? So people are talking about lectures, people are talking about group activities, pair work, they're talking about role play, and then all of this together is teaching strategies. So that's your main category under which you have all the codes for teaching strategies. So group work, pair work, role play, lecture, all of them come under teaching strategies. And all the data that's under each code, you have put it there. Once you have your data organized through codes, you will be able to see some patterns in your data. Now, the patterns in your data should help you think of some themes. Okay? The patterns in your data should help you think of some themes. Say, for example, if you see that if you interview 10 teachers regarding teaching literature in large classes, and you've got a lot of codes about lecture, group discussion, role play, when you read them, you see that those teachers who have more experience are talking about lectures much more than the new teachers, younger teachers who are talking about group work. This is a pattern. This can be your theme. Okay. So once your data is organized according to topic, according to code, you will be able to identify certain themes in your data. That searching for themes is the third step of your data analysis. Does that make sense, or do I need to repeat it? Does the third step make sense? Okay, Samra, I'll repeat it, no problem. First and second step are clear to everybody? Familiarizing yourself with the data and generating initial codes. Sitara and Samra, are the first and second step clear? Okay, all right. So let's do the third step again. Now, what do we do is, so you've got a lot of codes, okay? I'm trying to think of a way to explain it. So if you're interviewing about readers' perceptions of existentialism in Waiting for Godot, okay? You have got different codes. Let me try it with the whiteboard. Okay. So topic is existentialism in Waiting for Godot. And you've got data from 15 participants, okay? And you've done the coding, and you've codes about meaninglessness of life, absurdity of human existence, and religious meaning. Okay. Now, under meaninglessness, there are 3 quotations. Okay. One person has said, I felt life was meaningless after reading Waiting for Godot. Okay. And this is a Sindhi participant, Muslim urban background. Okay. Another one said, I feel I can give meaning to my life through religion. Okay. Sindhi, Muslim, rural background, religious father. Okay, so you know this about this person. I could think about how these characters feel meaningless. Sorry, it will take some time, but I hope this will help explain. I would have felt the same in their place. Urdu, religious, urban. Okay. All right. So it could go on. Imagine that there are 3 more similar quotations. Now, under meaninglessness, you have these 3 quotations, and you can see that this person is saying that life was meaningless after reading Waiting for Godot, whereas these 2 are saying that they could give meaning to their life with religion. Okay. And this person has a religious father, and this person is religious themselves. So you could find a theme, a pattern that meaninglessness was identified in the play, but given meaning by religious participants through their religious beliefs. Okay? This is your pattern or theme that you have identified in your data through your codes. Does that make sense? Tamra? Okay. So what we did was we started coding our data and we tried to make sense of it through the patterns that are there in the data. It helped us create a theme. All right. Shanawaz, Usman, Hina, is that okay? Sitara? Okay, great. All right. So what we do next is we review our themes. We go through our codes again, we go through our participants' information again, and we revise our themes. We check for any mistakes, and then we define our themes, we name them, and we write them. Okay. Defining and naming, I feel like that doesn't need to be a next step. It's basically the same as writing it down. Okay. Producing the report and defining and naming the themes can be one step. So basically, you search for the themes, you revise them, you go through your data again and again, and you see if there are any mistakes, and then you write it down. All right. Can we create many themes? Yes, you can create many themes. Usually we have 5 to 6 main arguments in our data. So 5 to 6 themes is okay. All right. All right, let's do this exercise now. All right. How many of you have done the interviews? I asked you to do an interview on why did you choose to study literature? How many of you have done it? Okay, Aisha has done it. All right. So what we are going to do, hopefully you have your interviews with you, okay? And I want you to think of 4 codes, okay? The reason that your participants gave to you, your respondents gave to you, you are going to put it into 4 codes. It could be job opportunities, personal interest, family's choice, or any others. Why did they choose to study literature? They studied literature because they thought that they would get a good job. They studied literature because they were interested in it, or they studied literature because their father, mother, somebody told them, or there could be any other reason. Friends told them, or they didn't have any other option, or it was their 3rd choice, 4th choice, and they got admission there anyways. Things like that you will put in others, okay? So what we are going to do is I am going to copy paste this link into the chat. This is a Google document where we can all write our answers, okay? So if you open this document, if you click on it, I messaged it to Savera only. I will message it to everybody. If you click on this document, you can put your data under each code. So whichever code your data applies to, copy paste your data and put it in this document. All right. If you have not done the interview, you can put your own reason for choosing literature in this document. Are the instructions clear? Can we all do that? Can we put our reasons for choosing literature from our respondent or from ourselves under these 4 codes? Can you open the document and copy paste your data in there? Is it clear? Do you know what you have to do? If you have more than 1 reasons, you can give it in more than 1 code. So for example, if Samra, your participant says that I chose literature because it was my personal interest, because I was very interested in it, then you copy paste that quotation and put it under personal interests. Okay. Is it clear? Halimat, could you open your mic and explain it to everybody what we are doing?
Yes, ma'am. You told that there are 4 coding systems. There are 4 namings of the codes. Categories, we can say: job opportunities, personal interest, family choice, and others. The interview that we did, there must be the interview has given the reason that why he or she chose the a reason to why he or she chose literature. So first we have to put his quotation that why he chose the literature and copy and paste this data to there, and then we tick the for any one of these 4 categories that what this statement is saying to us.
Okay, yes. So what exactly you need to do, you need to look at your interview transcript and you put it in one of these codes. So we are actually coding our data, all of your data together. If there are 50 interviews, we are going to try and code it into this. So can you do that? Can you copy paste your data into these categories, into these codes?
Ma'am?
Yeah.
have we to put only one quotation, only one sentence, or all the comments that
Just-
interviewer has given to us?
Just one sentence, okay?
Okay.
So that we have a space for everyone, okay? So that we can read it quickly as well.
Okay.
Start doing it. I want everyone to start doing it, please. I don't see anybody writing. I see a few people who have signed in here. I want you to start writing. Samra, Shanawaz, Etisaz, is it clear to you guys what you're doing? Okay, please go ahead and put your data in the table. I have shared the table with you. You can all write on it. I'll give you 5 minutes to write your stuff on this Google document. You can't type? Why not? Can anyone type? Let me check the sharing right. Oh, sorry, I've changed it now. You guys can do it now. I was wondering why nobody is writing. Sorry. Can you type now? Kashif and Sophia or Michelle, somebody could check. Close it and open it again. Can you try opening this new document? I can see some cursors there, so I think now you can write it. No? Here in the chat? No. All right. What we'll do is we'll continue in the next class. Okay. I'll try and check why the document is not working. Okay. And then in the next class we'll do the same activity. We'll continue with the same topic. We've got some slides left as well. So we'll complete qualitative data analysis in the next class. Okay. Yes, Usman, can you retype your question, please? Or you can speak. How will we come up with? Okay, yes, I remember your question. Yes, you've written it as well. So if people are giving you the same responses, then how does it come up with new data, right? That's what you're asking. So what we do is we design a research question that nobody has done before. Sure, Avazaz. So we try and design a research question that nobody has done before. Say, for example, if you are looking at people's perceptions of religion in response to waiting for Godot, then it's a question that nobody else has done. So we don't know Pakistani undergraduate participants' perceptions in relation to waiting for Godot. So whatever they're going to say is new information. So there is something new that you have found out through this research. Does that make sense?
Ma'am, actually, I say that, how does this contribute to the overall knowledge? Because when we read, for example, we want to know, for example, the reader's perception about waiting for Godot, then it's kind of, test whether it is pro-feminist or, if, for example, we are reading Doll's House, for example, then if we want to know the reader's perception, then it is kind of test to check whether it is pro or anti-feminist. So we just come up with one answer. Yes, it is, pro-feminist, and this is it. But how does this contribute to the overall development? For example, when we read literary criticism, we see that the views of Longinus, then afterwards these views were developed by romantics, and then afterwards John Dryden and all other writers, and we see there is a kind of development towards something more perfect or true. But here we see only theories, and we apply these theories to just come up with the same answers. So my question is, how does this contribute to the development of something like, we just end up having some sort of similar questions, even when we apply the theories. So that is my question. How does this contribute to the overall development?
Okay. Not every research will contribute something theoretically to the overall knowledge. Okay. Not every research is good enough to be able to do that. Okay. especially when you are doing it at early stages of your career, like you guys, you are novice researchers, you're new researchers. We do not expect you to make a theoretical contribution to knowledge, right? Um, what we do expect is you to be able to find out something a little bit new, right? That's all we are expecting from you at this stage. However, how does research contribute to new knowledge? That question, that's a very important question, a very good question. Say, for example, when I was doing my PhD, even when you're doing your PhD, it's a very small thing as compared to the whole of knowledge, as compared to the truth of knowledge. It's a very tiny thing, right? Even at a PhD level. So when I did it, what I did was I wanted to find out what are undergraduate students' perceptions in relation to citizenship in certain novels. So what I did was I interviewed these people, I observed their classes, I asked teachers, I asked students, I asked the people in the boards, and I collected all that information and I analyzed it and I made certain themes, and then I wrote those themes and I argued that whenever um, people read novels that were close to them, either culturally or temporally, that is, time wise, then they were able to find more themes in them. They were able to connect more to them, and they were able to see things from different perspective and relate to them. I also made certain theoretical contributions on the basis of that, right? So I was able to add to the already existing theory of reader response. I was able to add one little element.
Progress.
All right. So at that level, I was able to come up with one new point that could be added to reader response theory. That was a contribution. So it happens sometimes, but not always. And you could add depending on how intricately, how deeply you do your research. Ketro time tha dio unate ta ketro effort tha vijo that thing would lead to your theoretical contribution. Not everyone would make a theoretical contribution. Not every research would add to our existing database of knowledge, right? Usman, does that answer your question?
Yes, ma'am.
No.
It surely does.
All right, that's great. All right, so I can see some people answering, writing their points on the Google document. I hope that all of you can write something on it by next week so that we can analyze it in the next class. Okay, and then we'll learn how to do analysis and how to write your findings and discussion so that we can complete the qualitative data analysis portion of our class. Okay, so now that I can see that you can write on it, I would request all of you to do that. Yes, it will open in Google Drive. If it doesn't open on your phones, you will need to install the app called Docs. All right, so there's a Google Docs app that you could install on your phone on Play Store, or you could open it on a laptop, or and you can do that. Okay. So for those of you who have computers, laptops, please open it on that. If you don't have it, you can install an app and you could do it through that, or you can ask your friends to copy paste it on the folder. Okay. So all of you need to put it in the Google Drive and read the chapter on qualitative data analysis if you haven't already done it, so that we can discuss the rest of it next week. Okay. I was showing you Braun and Clark's thematic analysis. This is their article, using thematic analysis in psychology. This is very interesting and it will really help you understand thematic analysis. If you can read it, start from page 86 where the table is given so that you can follow it properly. Other than that, it's not, the part before that is not relevant to you. Okay, I'll post it on your group and I'll tell you the page numbers as well so that you can read only those pages. You don't need to do too much reading, all right? Too much reading is not good for health, okay? So don't do too much reading, don't read it all. Just do a little bit of reading, that's okay, all right? So that's what we are going to do next week. We are going to finish qualitative research, qualitative data analysis, and hopefully we are going to analyze the data that you will share on the Google Doc, okay? If you have any questions, please keep them, bring them to the class next week, and we will hopefully resolve those, okay? I have a webinar on qualitative data qualitative. Sitara, mute your mic. Okay. I have a webinar with Greenwich University's students on Friday that you could also benefit from. So if you would like to attend it, I can post the link on your group. It's going to talk, I'm going to talk about how to do research in literature, and I'm going to try and cover both textual analysis and qualitative research in literature. Okay, so if you guys are interested, I will post it on your group as well, and you can attend it. It only allows 100 participants, so please connect it soon so that you can get it. Okay, be there before time so that you can get it. All right. Okay. Thank you, guys. I'll see you next week.